a very critical sector, which is education sector. And we're looking at education without borders. And our discussion will also be partly in commemoration of the International Day of Education. It's actually tomorrow, January 24th. Of course, the discussion starts now. And do not forget that the theme is the power of youth in co-creating education, focusing on empowering young people as active partners and leaders in shaping inclusive, relevant education systems for a better future. But the crux of our discussion will be education without borders. What does that really mean? Means a humongous number of out-of-school children, particularly, up north. And yes, right here in the studio is Bosedi Ogidon, Programs Director at Teach for Nigeria. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. Well, I'm going to be doing this alone. My colleague is also here.
All right. Thank you so much, and I want to say a big welcome to our guest, Bosedi Ogidon, for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You are into education. So to start with, for the sake of education of our viewers, what does education without border mean, and how do we tackle it, considering the day tomorrow?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. So for my education is the one we receive from home, where you're taught cultures, values, right? The core values that, from your family, from the community. Growing up, your parents are not the only one that would tell you this is how to greet or this is how to, in the community where you grew up, right? That is informal education. And the formal one is the one you receive in the four walls of the classrooms, the school community, the school environment. And so when we say education without borders, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the four walls of the classroom. And with the advent of technology and where, technology is now, you can be in your room at the school, or you've actually gone through this level of training. And from context in Nigeria, it's very, very important. But then we have the other part where you could learn anywhere. And I think that most of these platforms, we now have them saying that you can also download your, once you go through this program, you can get a certification to showcase this. And then talking about without borders, it doesn't have to read and write alone. We talk about vocational education. We have, all this apprenticeship. It's another form of education. And we see them also now looking for ways to also come up with an idea of profiling, just giving certificates to some of their students or people that graduate from that different types of platform. So when we look at it, it's also just balancing it, right? It's just balancing it, because I think our education system, just like he said, is majorly, what's your certificate? There are people who can actually do some work that maybe they do not have the necessary certificate. But the truth is, when you look at our context, it's important that you go and have a formal education so that you can have evidence to show that you actually went through this training. So it's just finding a balance in all of this.
So, how's that shaping up? Education without borders. What are the target audience? Is it across different age groups?
Okay, so yeah, education borders, I think across different age groups. No one is too old to learn, right? If you don't have the opportunity to have a formal education, maybe growing up, we have a couple of people now that are now doing adult education, right? And saying, what, I want to go back to school and learn. And it just takes me to, there was a program I went for at Ogijo. One of our fellows started, training mothers. She's a teacher in a primary school, but realized that every time she gives these children homework to take home, they come back to school and it's not done. And so she had to probe further and realize that their parents cannot even read and write. So how would they be able to help these children? And it's still just pointing to education without borders. And she started, after school for parents, and said, if you want to help your children to improve, I have 2 hours after school. And so for that, it's not like they are going to use their certification for anything. but it's just so that they can learn how to read and write and support their children in school, right? So that education is also, it's not cast in stone, it's not in the four walls of the classroom, but just meeting them at the point where they also can support. So I think education is across, and I'm just sharing to say that education, whether you're old, whether you're young, education cuts across everyone. No one is too old to learn. Yeah.
So which means we'll be talking about digital learning. But what about the digital divide in Nigeria? When you go to rural areas, for example, I think that's where you see many people that really need, to be educated, and you may want to make use of technological devices, AI, and all of that. But where there are no, infrastructural facilities to enhance this, how do you go about it?
So for the digital divide, the truth is we can't shy away from it. It's true. Rural communities do not have access to some of the digital devices, and not only that, there are some communities where there are no network, right? So even if there are teachers, even if there are organizations that are planning to have, put teachers in or put resources in place, there are issues that are beyond our control when you look at it. For example, there are no network, power supply, but beyond that, there are other ways that people have been able to bypass this. So we have teachers that would make use of their laptops and then have a cluster learning opportunity, have exchange programs with children in the UK just with one laptop. And you'll be shocked how that can go on to just influence how a particular child learns. So if we continue to dwell on this problem and say, oh, we don't have network here, we don't have access to this, just one teacher, you just need one teacher to change the narrative. Just putting a teacher in that community who has a laptop will be able to expose the children to opportunities beyond their immediate locality. So the challenges are there. But the truth is, can we continue to dwell on it? No. Is it something that can be fixable in 1 or 2 months? No. But can we have teachers, 1 or 2 teachers? And I'm saying this because from experience, some of our teachers, our fellows that we place in these communities, these are the platform that they use. They have just a computer or a tab or a phone, and they are able to connect with other students outside their vicinity, so that children can also see that you're not the only one in school learning. There are also children beyond your community, outside the country, within the country, in Lagos, in any other parts of Nigeria. They're also learning like you. So there is that issue of digital divide. But I think that if we continue to dwell on the digital divide problem that we have, we'll probably not come up with innovative ways to move past this. So what I know and I've seen is that teachers, especially our fellows, are beginning to look for ways to be able to bring quality education closer to children, and by leveraging limited resources that they have.
Right. I would like to ask, as a nation, how prepared are we for this learning without borders? If we take away the challenge of funding, and we take away the challenge of probably infrastructural gap that you spoke about, are we really ready to embrace this?
So I'm going to be talking from my own sense of possibility, right? I believe that we're ready we're ready to take education to the next phase in Nigeria. It all depends on intentionality. And I always say that I know that the government cannot do it alone. And that is why the government needs to work with private partnership so that this can work, right? I made mention of the infrastructure gap. We have thousands of public primary and secondary schools in Nigeria, and the government probably might not be able to undo everything. But that is why organizations like ours, different organizations are coming together saying, what can we do? How can we support the government to be able to bridge this gap? There are, different companies who are ready to donate laptops, give licenses that children should be able to learn. It's for the government to be open to receive such grants, such opportunities, so that children would have access to quality education. So I believe that at this point where the country is now, we begin to see how some state government, just like Ogun State government, are open to innovations like this. Because if they are not open to it, Teach for Nigeria will not be here. So currently we are in Ogun State, placing fellows, we call them fellows teachers, in low-income communities in Ogun State, and we could see the impact of the work that they are doing. So intentionality, because I believe we could do anything if we set our mind to do it. Intentionality and just the government being open to private-public partnership.
Some people have the opinion that Nigeria is preparing, we are preparing our children for yesterday's job. How true is this, and to what extent can Education Without Border tackle this challenge?
So we hear that a lot, that they are preparing, students for yesterday's job, like the courses in our universities. Let's start with that. We still have computer science, and people have moved from that to cybersecurity, data science, and the likes. In some way, might be true. It's also back to how can we have conversations with the private sector, right? How can we have conversation with the private sector, and how can we begin to say that, okay, some of these courses that are making them employable, how can we bring it into the university system to balance things? And then the saying that yesterday's job, honestly, to a lot of people that I've jackpot, I read something online and they said people that have jackpot are now looking for Nigerian teachers.
So, but what about the teachers, themselves? So, because I know that not every teacher, has the computer, skills, and we've identified or we've established that to achieve this Education Without Borders, then we need technological devices, computer skills, and all of that. So, how are you also empowering the teachers? Because they also need to be empowered to empower others.
Okay, so for us at Teach for Nigeria, we empower our teachers. We have trainings for them because we believe that they are leaders, and during government become the chief boards. But our schools, in public schools I mean, are still making use of chalks. Yeah. And then people are now donating whiteboard markers, whereas private schools have moved on to interactive. A public school just pumping money. But it's necessary that we have to be intentional in retraining of teachers, supporting teachers.
Well, according to UNICEF, there are, in Nigeria, I know that was during Goodluck Jonathan's administration. But that didn't produce much fruits. So, are you looking into that area too?
Yes. So currently we are in 2 states, Lagos and Ogun State, and formerly we were in Kaduna State. But because of insecurity and the likes, we had to pause our operation there. So we are currently looking at moving to the up north, and then hoping to partner with state government. We can't just move to a state where the state government is not ready to partner with us. So we are looking forward to partnering with state government and then moving on to up north. But beyond that, I know that there are other organizations that are working to ensure that the rate of out-of-school children reduces. For us, even though we don't currently have operation in the north, we started a teachers training program where we've been able to train over 20,000 teachers in 12 states in Nigeria, inclusive of some states in the north, because we also believe that the teachers that are currently in school needs to be trained. Now, for out-of-school children, you said 11 million. I think according to STAT, it's saying 20 million now. Now, that is one aspect. Now, if you go further to read the statistics, over 50% of children that are in school are not learning. Over 50% cannot read a simple text by the time they finish primary 6 or perform a simple mathematics operation. So that is even worse than people that are not even in school. So you are in school, but you are not learning. So it's like you wasted 6 years of your life. So back to, honestly, the answer to all this is public-private partnership. How can we continue to support the government to ensure that the out-of-school children number reduces? But also there is this case of insecurity. Okay. What happens then? I was watching earlier on the news, OGTV news, and they said Kajuru invasion. And I served in that same Kajuru, by the way, and I was shocked there are like 4 schools there. I'm just giving an example. Now, when there is an invasion in a particular community, there won't be school. What then happens? By the time 2 terms, 3 terms, 1 year, academic year, they're out of school, they join that bandwagon of 20 million out of school. So there are some problems, there are some security problems that need to be solved by the government. There are some poverty issues that need to be solved. So out of school children, it's not only education reason alone, or maybe they lack teachers or lack school, but there are some of these issues that it's taking these children out of school. Currently now, I think there are also some places in Lagos that children are being displaced. Now they are out of school, right? Schools have resumed for the past 3 weeks. No school. By the time they stay home in 6 months, they also join that bandwagon.
So, I mean, but your presence is quite profound in the Southwest.
Yes.
Because the last index I saw, they're also out of school children, even in the Southwest, but we know that, yes, there are more in up north.
Up north, yeah.
Run me through your activities now in the Southwest. How have you been able to return some of them to school? And this PPP, how is it also shaping up?
Okay, so we are currently in Lagos and Ogun State and in public primary and secondary school. We started in 2017, and our vision is that one day every Nigerian child, irrespective of your socio-economic background, we have an opportunity to attain an excellent education. And we're running with that vision of recruiting young graduates because we believe that young people are ready to give their time to support and lead and teach and impact these children.
Regardless of what they studied? Or?
Regardless of what they studied. Like I said, we train them. So after recruiting them, we then train them an in-person training for 4 weeks. And we've been making use of different facilities. But last year, we partnered with Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, where we trained over 500 of these young people and then 100 school leaders. Now, once they are trained, they are then placed in partnership with Ogun State government and Lagos State government. We then place them in low-income communities, in underserved schools, to be able to use the experience, the training, the knowledge that they've gone through to bring quality education to these children. And I made an example of them just leveraging, their dead spaces, leveraging limited resources to ensure that these children get the optimum level of education that they deserve, right? And then beyond that, after the 2-year fellowship, they don't become an alum. Currently, we have an alumni, and one of our alum that is running a free tuition school in Ota. She started with just 20, but now they have about 500 students. Free tuition, you don't have to pay. Their focus is, let me go out there, bring out of school children and bring them into school. Beyond that, even our fellows in their classroom, there was a story of a particular school in Ado-Odota where we have 2 of our fellows. It said that when they got to the school, they only had 40 enrollment. So what did they have to do? They had to start going to the communities and start leveraging the ballets, the religious leaders, and start talking to parents. Please bring your children to school. You're not going to pay anything. We will pay that for you. And we were shocked. In less than 2 months, the school's enrollment has moved from 40 to about 350 because the parents just need to hear somebody that will bear their burden, right? They just need to hear that, don't worry about school fees, we are going to pay. Don't worry about uniform, we'll provide uniform for them. Just provide these children for us. And like I said earlier, when you tackle the issue of poverty, you'll be able to solve some of these problems that we are facing in education.
Right, I'd like to ask, because one of the most important pawn in the game of education in Nigeria is the parents. And if we can't have a mindset shift from the parents, I'm not sure all this that PPP, government intervention, will yield fruit. So what kind of change, a shift, would you appeal to parents, especially those that are watching this program, to have when it comes to education in Nigeria and also tackling out-of-school children?
So, from my experience with working with children from low-income communities, I believe, or I know that sometimes we might just assume that the parents are not interested. But the truth is, when they begin to see the changes in their world and their children, they want to investigate what's going on. And then they are open to, like, I want to be part of my child's life. I realized, a child that cannot read, all of a sudden can read now. What has happened? What is happening in your school? And you realize that a parent that is not even concerned started coming to school to come and make inquiries and just ask questions. So in cases like that, we've seen cases like that, and I made mention of a particular teacher, one of our fellows, who realized that the parents were involved, and then he started teaching them because they could not read and write. That is one, right? When parents begin to see the impact in the lives of their children, they become more interested. They become more like, yeah, I want to be part of this. So my advice to parents is to be more involved in the education of their children. I think that's the first thing. They need to be more involved. I know that you're concerned, just wear uniform, eat and go. But you need to be intentional and be more involved. And when you look at statistics, children that their parents are more involved in their education, they tend to excel more than those that, their parents are not even concerned. And beyond parents, it's also to speak to our religious leaders, Muslim, Christian, traditional leaders. How can they support us or support the government in ensuring that they can speak to parents? Because whether you are Christian, you are either Christian or Muslim or traditional, and they always have gatherings. So these gatherings, they also speak about it. Are you involved in your child's education? Do you even look out for your child when your child is going to school? So when they start doing this, parents are also open to the idea of, I need to be more about my child's well-being. So it's a collective effort, pay about my child's well-being. So it's a collective effort, parents, the community, religious leaders, and even us to support government, religious leaders, and even us to support government to say, okay, how can we for quality education for their children, to be more intentional about the welfare, about the education of their children, and about the life of their children. 50 young people, and our application is going to be going live next week Friday, that is January 30th, and it's going to be this, or within the 2 years, to have its education certificate by 12 a.m. So we're looking forward to receiving as many applications that we can. Like I said, we're recruiting 550 for both Lagos and Ogun State.
Okay, well, what challenges have you seen working in Ogun State specifically? And I'm sure the government has received you, Teach for Nigeria, with open arms. And what challenges have you faced with the people over the years? And also, what results can you showcase?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that we started in 2017. Of course, all the successes we've recorded also came with its own challenges. But so far, Ogun State government has been one of the state government that has supported Teach for Nigeria's own challenges. We're recruiting young graduates from different parts of Nigeria, just like they are. Another challenge that I would say we have is, just like he mentioned earlier, was placing fellows in low-income communities where there is no power supply, there is no electricity, and then we have this monthly training that you have to do, which is important for every fellow. There's also that because they have to then travel to another close by community to have access to a network, to reach out to their family, or even reach out to us if there are any issues. That is that. There is also the issue of the parents, just like you said. You just came into school, you're excited, you're like, but why don't you have a uniform? And then you meeting the parent like, okay, bye. I don't have the money. But with all these challenges, I think we've been able to find a way to surmount some of these challenges, and it's also a learning curve for us to continue to learn as an organization. So the challenges we faced in 2017, we've surmounted it. So yes, 2026 is another year, and we believe we have a sense of possibility in Teach for Nigeria as part of our core values, that every challenges we are facing, we definitely find a way to surmount it.
Right.
So, but what about this? I think there's this subtle, stigmatization of the teaching profession. Even in universities, you go to Faculty of Education, people believe that's where we have more, older people, or maybe those that have applied to other departments but were rejected. They tend to see, education as that last resort. So, but when you are recruiting, how do you then ensure that you recruit those that have that best interest, those that are really interested? Because these days, many people want to go into, tech, medicine, and so on. And in the pecking order, teaching seems to be at the bottom. There's always this impression that, teaching is not lucrative, the reward of teachers is in heaven. So how much of a challenge is this?
So I won't lie, there's that challenge, especially when you're recruiting that large number. There is this, like you said, there's this stigmatization when it comes to, you study education, so what are you going to do with that? But we're changing that narrative, because I believe that you and I would not be here speaking if we never went through the four walls of the classroom or had a teacher who believed in us. And that is what we're changing, and that is why we're bringing 550 young people to join this fight against education inequity, because we believe that it's a fight, so we need to fight and win this fight. So for us, we are not only recruiting education graduates, and of course we partner with different universities. I mentioned Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, University of Lagos, Lagos State University, University of Ilorin. So we go to these different universities and other private universities around and speak to them. We don't only speak to education graduates alone, we'll speak to every one of them. But we also specifically are intentional about education graduates or postgraduate students and tell them, you don't know what you have. What you have is going to shape and change this world. And you can start now by just stop talking about the problem and be part of the solution. The world has changed from, because I'm a teacher. I made mention of something. People that have jackpot, they are now reaching out to teachers in Nigeria to be able to teach their own children, and they pay in dollars. Right? So, that 2001, 2012 mentality of teachers' reward is in level. No. That's not the case here. One thing I would tell teachers, you need to upskill yourself, because the mindset or the training that you received at colleges of education then has changed. When you received your training, maybe NCE and stuff, it has changed from what it is now. Teachers are now Microsoft educators. Teachers are now going online and are now teaching Chinese, English. For those that study English in the university, there are different platforms that teachers are signing in now to train and get money beyond, their normal teaching hours in a normal school in Nigeria. So I believe that things have changed. Teachers just need to keep upskilling themselves, and there are different platforms. Like I said, for Teach for Nigeria, beyond our fellowship program, we run a teachers training program. We've done that in Osun, in Oyo, in Lagos, in Ogun State, in Zamfara, in over 12 states in Nigeria. Teachers need to be more open-minded, especially the ones that are of age, to be more open-minded to the opportunities that are out there for teachers, so that they can grab those opportunities.
Let's be frank, there is this apathy towards teaching in rural communities, even amongst the professional teachers. Most times they want to teach in the cities, urban areas, because of the facilities and of course the opportunities. So when you take these teachers to these areas, what's also in it for them? What about their welfare? So what do you do in that regard?
So I'm going to use the example of our fellows. When you begin to see teachers as leaders, there's a shift in their mindset to say that, what, for the time being that I'm going to be in this school, I'm going to give my best and ensure that these children remembers that they went through a particular teacher. So when we change the mindset of teachers, about you're not just teaching just to collect salary, but you have lives in your hands that you need to lead to impact them. It gives them another shape, another idea about how they should view their profession, right? So beyond that, for our teachers, we have health insurance for them. We have life insurance for them because we know we are placing them in new communities. So their well-being is our responsibility. They also have access to mental health specialists based on the health insurance, because we believe that mental health of teachers is also important. So for our teachers, those are the things we have put in place to ensure that they are well equipped for the job that they are supposed to do on the field.
All right, there are some issues about reforms, educational reforms that the federal government is trying to put in place. One of them that generated a lot of noise is that of teaching in the mother tongue, especially at the primary school level. Whilst a lot of people applauded the federal. You spoke earlier about almost 50%. You spoke earlier about almost 50% of those in schools are not learning. Now, if they aren't learning with their mother tongue, how would they learn?
So, to also translate it in the phonics. I also translate it in the phonics. I made mention of foundational literacy. In English, how does the child even understand what my name is? What their name is mostly similar to the phonics in English. So you can see the similarity. There is need for a child, of course, to know their mother tongue. I know that new generation parents, my child must know how to speak English. But going back to people that have jackpot, they are now seeing the reasons for why their child needs to know their mother tongue, because it's also they are also attached to their roots. So you're not only learning Yoruba for the sake of knowing to read, but there's just this attachment to your roots, to your culture, to your value as a Yoruba person. They will say Omoluabi, which by the time you want to translate that to English, there's a way it's sort of, it's not straight. But then I understand what Omoluabi means. So tell me why your focus is only English. Meanwhile, you are not the owner of this language, right? So for my thoughts, right, I believe that early childhood, primary 1, primary 2, there should be a mixture of the local language and Yoruba. I think we have 3 major languages in Nigeria. There should be a mixture so that there is now deeper understanding for a child that is learning. And learning to read is not just reading, but we have forgotten that there's also a part of comprehension. And so understanding your own mother tongue helps you comprehend well, even when you read in English.
All right. Thank God you are a lady. The issue of educating the girl child is a challenge in some part of Nigeria. Yes, it might not be that prevalent in the southwestern part of this country, but it is a problem. There are still people that would rather educate their boy child because they feel that the girl child will end up in his husband's kitchen, kind of. So what message do you have, both for the parent and probably for a child that's been disenfranchised, let me use that word, deprived of education, girl child education in Nigeria?
Okay, so I'm going to use myself as an example. Imagine I was deprived education. I probably would not be sitting here and having conversation with you. Not only that, I will not be working as programs director, I will not be opportune to recruit as many people that I'm recruiting that are making thousands of impacts to thousands of children. There's this saying that when you educate a girl child, you educate a nation. There is this attachment a child has with their mother. There's this also saying that if your wife is Igbo and you're Yoruba, there's every tendency that your child will learn the Igbo faster than your language. Why? Because the child is sort of closer, they spend more time with their mother. And so when you educate a girl child who then becomes a wife, has more understanding, is able to also teach. I mentioned informal, both informal and formal education. So there is need for us to also be intentional about educating the girl child. The issue of just thinking that when you educate a girl child, it's a waste of time because she's going to end up in her husband's kitchen. Well, I'm here, I'm not in any kitchen. So I believe that it's important that we're intentional about the education. Like you said, it's not really prevalent in the Southwest, but this is us, sharing as Nigerians to say that there is intentionality about educating the girl child, ensuring that, you allow your girl child, give both boy and girl child the opportunity to have an excellent education. Every child has right to education, whether it's a boy or a girl. It's in the Constitution. Every child. So you now holding your girl child back, honestly, I think it's a disservice to that child, and not only to that child, to you as a human being, to you as the parent, because in years to come you then regret that action, or that child then hates you for the fact that you never allowed her to have access to quality education. So intentionality in understanding that every child have a right to it. It's important that we allow girl child to go to school. The idea of saying because you're a girl child you end up in the kitchen or start selling things, you can still be educated and still sell things. Maybe this time around not in Kuto market, but have your own supermarket.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, despite these reforms, I feel we still have a culture of memorization, over mastery, and I believe that this is a big challenge. Students read for exams, and after exams, it seems they forget everything, and there are a lot of cramming, that goes on in secondary schools, even at tertiary level. So how can this be tackled? How can we get to a point? Because I know that Kenya rolled out a competency based learning, I think in 2017. So it was more about less of memorization. And when you also check what Finland has done, the phenomenal-based learning, Singapore's high teacher investment model, so which shows in other countries they are leaving this memorization behind. But everything we've done so far, I don't think we've really tackled that, or we've seen that as a problem.
Okay. So it's like most children learn through rote learning, and it's also back to our standardized test. There's a standardized test that every child must go through, and for you to move on to another stage. So most times it ends up like, let me just read and pass this exam so that I can move on to the next class. And like I said earlier, when every teacher starts seeing themselves as leaders, the mindset shifts, and then it comes down to the students. As a teacher, you're teaching them not for them to only pass that class, but this education I'm giving to you is a life skill that will help you through life journey. We were taught math, right? We were taught quadratic equation, but there was no time. So it's from teaching. There was no time, then I'm giving myself as an example, where there was a practical application of what quadratic equation means in life. But do we actually need it? Yes. It was when I was now of age I realized that if I want to do some calculations, I have to use some formula. But if my teacher, I'm just using it as an example, I told me that this is the application in life, right? There is more understanding, and that's the revolution we are bringing, and that's what our fellows are doing. So if I'm going to be teaching you sets in math, then I have to also show you the real application. So I'm teaching you fraction. I'm bringing, an apple to the classroom and cutting the apple into half and then sharing. I said, okay, this is how you share things. This is called what fraction is all about. Now, when there is a real life application, it stays. I would pass the exam, but when I move on to the other class, it's like a build up to what I've learned, because now there is already an understanding that this is beyond me passing. So it also comes from the teachers. If teachers start seeing themselves as leaders, changing this mindset, we also help the children to know that whatever I'm teaching you is not just for you to pass, it's not just for you to graduate from the university or from secondary school or from primary school, but it's a life skill that I'm putting in you to help you through life.
Now, artificial intelligence has come to stay, and different professions are looking for how they can embrace or co-create stuff with AI. So in the education sector, what are the policies regarding this, and do you think it has been embraced fully?
So just like you said, AI is here to stay. But when we started this conversation, we talked about some communities that do not have access to power supply internet. So it's back to, they are still even learning how to use the computer, to talk of now bringing AI. I saw, I think in the news, that Ogun State launched Ogun Learn now, infusing AI into learning, which is a very laudable initiative, and I think that through this, they might begin to expose teachers to some of these AI tools that they can leverage in schools. Now back to our teachers. The teachers need to learn to use it first before it comes to the students. They need to learn it first. So with this initiative that I've seen, I think I saw it of recent that the Ogun State has launched that. I think it's also showing that, you know, the state government is thinking in the right direction when it comes to how to infuse AI into education. But like I said, it's also come down to the teachers. How can we upskill these teachers so that they can even know how to leverage AI to reduce their workload, to support them in their teaching and the learning for the children.
Well, as you train teachers, is this infused in their training?
Yes, for us it is infused. Like I said, we spend 1 month and then we have monthly trainings that we do for them. So yes, it's infused. We teach you how to leverage AI to do your starter. How to leverage AI to maybe solve some mathematics operation that you know it's hard. So, you know, sending prompts to AI, how can I teach this subject in a very simplified way for my students to learn? So yes, our fellows are currently leveraging AI for that purpose. But I'm just talking generally about teachers and how we can maybe upskill them, not maybe upskill them, so that we can then expose them to the world of AI. Because whether we like it or not, AI, just like you said, is here to stay.
My worry is when you train these teachers, I'm sure you make use of interactive boards, you know, maybe markers to an extent. But when they go to these, you know, communities, the rural communities, maybe they may not have, you know, that, you know, those facilities. So how do you then ensure that your teaching is not far away from realities?
Okay, so reality is not going to go away tomorrow, but every teacher has a phone. So like I said, leverage little resources that you have. We are in Nigeria, so we have to, you know, blend with whatever we are used to. You might not have interactive boards in your classroom, but you have a phone that you can leverage. You have a phone that you can use. Now there are now phone stands where people can then do TikTok video. You can leverage that phone stand, put it and do it in clusters for, you know, children. I'm not saying that it's the best, but can we leverage the resources, the little resources that we have in our care?
All right, our time is almost up. I would like to ask, since your target is 550 fellows, and there is a challenge that employers have noticed all over the country, if I may say, and it's the issue of employability of